Hello again, everybody. How you enjoying it so far? Everybody having a good time? Well, I'm going to bring out our first guest speaker and a little background as to who this person is. She hails from Pottsville, and she moved away. She went to school in New York City, and, well, she came back to Pottsville last year for our inaugural Pride. And when she soaked it all in, she went home and she wrote the most beautiful story about what happened here last year. And her story just continues to this day to bring me to tears. So I invited her back to tell her story. I would like to bring out to the stage Miss Jaynē Eckley.
Hello, everybody. Happy Pride. My name is Jaynē Eckley, and I am a proud queer woman. In my career as a therapist and a future psychologist, I have the greatest privilege of hearing other people tell their stories. I am lucky to be a witness to their truths and to be a guide throughout their healing. Together, my patients and I listen to the stories they tell themselves and how our interpretation of our own lives impacts how we feel. Today, I'd like to talk to you all about the power of stories, how they impact ourselves, the way we connect with others, and the larger movement our stories have on our small communities. Part of my story occurred when I was a teenager. As a teenager, I found peace in collecting and raising tadpoles that were born on the top of my parents' pool cover. I had fantasies of providing them with care, food, and an environment they would need in order to grow. I had envisioned them becoming strong enough to leap into their froggy lives. Each year, for 4 years, I had failed at this task. I would wake up each year one day to find all the tadpoles belly up in various stages of their development. I couldn't understand. I have read the contents of care online and even ordered, much to my parents' dismay, buckets of fruit flies. I was doing everything by the book. What was wrong? I was scared and I was confused. It was around this time that I was going through another part of my own development. I guess you can say I was starting to grow my own legs and finding my way through the world. I had the care, the food, the environment that I needed to grow. I'd envisioned myself becoming strong enough to leap into my independent life. However, as a teenager, each year, 4 years, I felt that I failed. I couldn't understand. I prayed to God and did well in school. I felt possessed with anxiety and fear that there was something in me that was different. At that point, I couldn't find the means, the words to express myself or my story. Instead of expressing these fears outwards to others, I instead turned inwards on myself. I, like the frogs, felt as if I was about to go through the pain of being belly up due to feeling different. I was doing everything by the book. What was going wrong? I was scared and confused. The last year I raised the frogs, I took a different approach. Rather than reading instructions of care on the internet, I spent alone time with the frogs. I was carefully observant to their needs and each unique phase of development that they were in. Some needed to have access to rocks to breathe, while others needed the comfort of the leaves in the water. Some needed to climb on walls, and some wanted ants instead of flies. Their actions and unique preferences told their story, and I was able to listen, to hear, to rise up to the task. That year, I released 10 frogs. I began writing my own story, originally to myself, about being queer. I observed my own preferences for women, And rather than be angry and turning inwards, I tried to meet myself with love. Telling my own story, I would soon learn after I came out, had originally fallen on deaf ears or was met with rejection. I asked myself, would I be alone with this burden? Could anyone listen? I leapt with my legs anyway, far away from this town where I felt I wouldn't be received for the person I felt inside. This story I told myself about this town was that it was unaccepting, filled with former friends that had turned me away. Part of my story continued when I went to graduate school in Pittsburgh. With a new circle of diverse people, I listened to them tell their stories, some accepting, some painful, but all were beautiful. After a while, I told my coming out story again. I was met with circles of arms and hugs filled with comfort. I belonged. I had a community. I was healed by both sharing and listening, and it led me to pursue a career in psychology, where I could help others through listening, holding, containing their experiences. Currently, I'm in my final year at my program at Fordham University in New York City, and I will graduate next May with my PhD in psychology. My research focuses on transgender women's experience, particularly coming out in the context of the workplace. I found that in my studies, which is unfortunately not surprising, there was a lack of voices from people who are transgender, and I wanted to give them the microphone. Even through the pain and suffering, they share resilience and light. I'd like to share with you two themes of my study, which are the women's desire to empower their own community through their story and their advocacy on behalf of their own community. One woman, Daria, a trans woman in Washington, told me this: everything I thought that would happen after coming out did not, and everything that I hoped would happen has had an opportunity to occur. Not saying it did occur, but there's an opportunity. And because of that, I feel my fears were so horribly unfounded. That's why I've chose to be open about my experience, because it's important for other trans folks to understand it's not something that will end your life. It won't end your future. If anything, it will open doors. Another woman, an EMT in Texas, had shared this: no matter how many times you say it, it just takes one person. We elected our first openly gay married governor of Colorado this year. We haven't had quite a transgender person sit in Congress yet, but we've got transgender representation now in state and local governments. It's coming, but it's only coming when people are willing to almost make a sacrifice of their personal matters and be willing to openly talk and openly experience and openly share who they are, their thoughts, their feelings, our desires, our goals. These quotes I reflect on often, particularly these two messages. Being open will open doors. Change is coming because we have shared who we are, our thoughts, our feelings, our desires, our goals. Part of my story continued last year in 2020 at this Pride Festival. Last year's Pride event I see as Michaela's storybook. The work she put into it, the love and care and connection, is her manifesto. Suddenly, the story I once told about my hometown had a new chapter. And my heart gives 1,000 thank yous to Michaela for writing it. In this chapter, drag queens and kings of all genders, ethnicities, races tell their stories through performance, dance, and death drops. To you, I say, I hear your story. In this chapter, I see teens and kids dancing and cheering with pride, forming images of positive role models, and seeing what their future can be like. To you, kids and teens, I say, I hear your story, share it louder. I also see supporters, maybe on the sidelines. To you, I say, I hear your story, and others want to hear it too. As Billy Porter once said, we are at the forefront of telling our own narrative, and it's not at the hands of other people who are outside of the community anymore. If you are an ally, a friend, a supporter, ask us, listen to our stories. Listen to the fear, the pain, the joy, the resilience, the beauty. We want to tell you. I think back to my teenage self as well as my tadpoles, hundreds of which were lost in the journey, and I think about what helped us grow. It was not just food and a place to live. It was careful consideration of another, an environment full of love and support that helped them thrive, and the courage to leap out on their own. Now, as I sit here with my friends and family all supporting me, I think we have all these factors that will need all of us to help grow and thrive here at Pride this year. Thank you, Michaela, and thank you everyone who made this possible.
Sorry.
Do it again. All right.
3, 2, 1. Hi, Professor Pride here at the Pottsville Pride Festival 2021 with Senate candidate and Representative of Pennsylvania, Malcolm Kenyatta. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be with you. And it's been hot, really hot, and so we're getting a little rain, which is desperately needed.
Exactly. Now, Ian,
that whole set of speakers in. So you just need to. I'm just right in front of the camera.
Okay.
So if you want to run your sound wire to it.
Yeah. I'm just gonna cut until we're done this. Sorry. Anyway, this is my job, honey.
That's right.
This is his first day seeing me. So, 3, 2, 1.